You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it as promised. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hull, publisher of Wolverines Wire. We're going to get to Michigan State, kind of more of a deep dive into their stats, what they do. But before we do that, as promised, we are bringing back Mike Golic Jr. He is the dude over at DraftKings, and super excited to have you back, man.
Happy to be back, man. Very excited. And a week where I actually get to head out to Ann Arbor here. This is a beautiful time.
Oh, awesome. Glad that you're gonna be out here. Weather's supposed to be beautiful. It's not today. It is gloomy. It is awful. But it is October, so that is to be expected. All right, so let's just dive right in, because last time we talked to you, which was before the season started, you were not particularly optimistic on Michigan and Michigan's chances. How do you feel about the Wolverines now? We are 7 games into their season. They've got 5 games left. Obviously, Michigan State this week, finishing the season, regular season with Ohio State. What are your thoughts on what Michigan is, what you've seen from them, how maybe they've surprised you, or maybe they haven't? I don't know.
No, I mean, I think they have. It's the consistency they've displayed from year to year, despite losing a lot of quality talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, has been really impressive. And to go out and physically dominate opponents the way they have, especially during this middle stretch of the season, has put them in a position where they're one of probably 6 teams at the top of college football that have a real shot at this thing right now as we're currently positioned. There's always a chance for a dark horse, and I think there's usually a team every year when the first college playoff rankings come out that's outside of the top 8 that finds their way into the top 4. There's usually someone built for that climb as we get towards the silly stretch down to the end of the season. But Michigan has displayed a remarkable willingness to stick to a formula that worked for them last year and to make it work again at a really high level this year, even accounting for the fact that they played nothing and nobody for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to say that everyone is surprised, but I think it's not difficult to say that this has gone at least as good as advertised, right? Like, I went into the season thinking that this defense had the capability of being as good. Jim Harbaugh was out there saying it could be better than it was last year. But when you look at this Michigan defense in particular and what it's been able to do, how much has that really surprised you? Given, when we spoke before, you just got, you said, hey, no David Ojabo, no Aiden Hutchinson, no Dax Hill. That's a lot of dudes.
That's a lot of Sunday dudes that you lost on that defense. And listen, I think overall, the thing that always stands out to me on defense, one is you do still have really quality first personnel in there, right? Like Mozzie Smith in the middle, Mike Morris on the edge of that. There are guys that up front, as I watch everything from the front 7 on back. So as an offensive lineman, I look, what's the thing I'd be least inclined or least excited to block? And Mozzie Smith is right up at the top of that list. Feldman's freaks guy, all that stuff. But they just throw a lot of different looks at you on that front. So really multiple defensive front. And I think when you've got quality players in a scheme that's also going to present headaches for opposing offenses, you always give yourself a chance. And we know there's been turnover at the defensive coordinator job in the last few seasons, all those things that have changed. But the formula has still remained on that side that, you've got quality guys, but you've got a scheme that puts them in chances to win. You do exciting things and mix up the looks on third downs. You put these guys in position to go out and have success. And that's what they did last year when you had the NFL pass rushers there. Life certainly gets easier, but I definitely think there's been positive strides on that side of the ball to go along with an offense that has still really gone out and dominated on the ground the way that they have. And I think when you look at something that can help a defense, we talk all the time about the relationship between one side of the ball to the other, complementary football. It's why playing defense opposite an offense like Ole Miss's, opposite an offense like Tennessee's, opposite an offense like what you've got in Mississippi State with Mike Leach is always a difficult prospect because those things can go so fast. 3 and outs can pop up a lot more. For this Michigan defense, when you've got an offense that's great in terms of time of possession, is going to control the ball and is going to give you time on the sideline, it does increase the likelihood of success on that side of the ball because you don't have to deal with as much sudden change. And so I think it's worked really well, and complementary football is going to continue to be a big reason why Michigan has success.
Well, let's look at this weekend, Michigan against Michigan State. I've seen the line go as low as I think 17.5 at one point. At last I looked, I should have looked in the DraftKings app earlier today because I was in there playing casino games. But I think it's hovering around 21, 22. Michigan's been kind of hit or miss when it's come to covering. Of course, they are undefeated. So if you're going and you're betting the game line on Michigan, you're pretty happy. But when you look at this game, what matchups are you looking at? What is your expected outcome? And since you are a DraftKings guy, which way would you bet this game if you were to bet it?
So I am also calling this game for Learfield Audio on radio, so I will not make a pick in this game just because I am calling this one. Absolutely, I will say fair. In the DraftKings app, Michigan's a 23-point favorite right now as they're recording this podcast, and the over-under number is set at 55 points in this game. The thing I'm most excited to see in this game is the Michigan passing attack and how it continues to be featured, because I think if you're smart, you should go out here and win this game. Now, it's a rivalry game. I know Kenneth Walker III is not here, but wonky stuff happens in rivalry games. It's October football. I wouldn't put it past the Spartans to have some different stuff ready here. But I'll say this. We know the back end of that Michigan State defense just has not been fixed. Year to year, it was the biggest question, and it still hasn't been answered, despite the fact that you've got Mel Tucker working more hands-on in a position group where he cut his teeth. It's been surprising, but that's the reality. And so if I'm Michigan, trying to make sure that we get some quality reps as this game goes along of working our downfield passing attack, working some of our drop back stuff. Yeah, I listen, I know with JJ McCarthy, getting him on the rollout stuff works really well. He's a really good first read quarterback where if you've got an open slant, an open button hook right in the middle of the field, if you've got stuff going towards the sideline, he's going to be your guy. When you give him stuff where that first read's taken away and he's got to pat the ball a little bit, that's where Michigan fans have seen him get in a little bit of trouble, him hold on a little bit too long. The footwork starts to get messy. And so can they use this opportunity against a clear weakness for Michigan State to go out here and get some looks down the field for Ronnie Bell and Cornelius Washington and these wide receivers that are good, tough guys that are capable players. But so far, that's the one part that you can say has been inconsistent, is getting that downfield passing game consistently going in this. You know you can do the thing up front, right? You can run Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards till the cows come home, and that's going to work just fine. You can cruise to victory. But if you're Michigan, you know the Ohio State animal looks different this year. It's not the team you played last year with the defense that was a non-compete in so many ways that were abnormal for that team. You're building towards Ohio State and the college football playoff. And so if I've got that in mind, I'm trying to make sure that this downfield passing attack is a tool we can go to in our belt more consistently. And this would be a great game to get reps at that.
All right. Speaking of Ohio State, I do want to touch on that. Both of course, everyone's starting to look ahead to November. Before we touch on that topic ourselves and our way too early outlook of that game, Ohio State has a test going on the road to Penn State. Ohio State has only taken the game on the road, I believe, once this year. This is going to be a different environment for these Buckeyes. Penn State obviously got run out of the gym, so to speak, by Michigan. But what are you expecting for Ohio State and Penn State this weekend?
You know what? I think I'd expect Penn State to be in a little more control of themselves. Now, for them, it's interesting because you got Sean Clifford, who is a veteran quarterback there, who's been around for a lot of ups and downs in that program and has a complicated relationship with that fan base. And you've got a backup quarterback and a kid named Drew Aller, 6'5", 5-star, who everyone in that fan base really wants to see and who's got a lot of talented physical gifts. This would not be the week to make that change or even really think about that, I think. But all of that is to say it's not all totally settled there. Great running backs on that offense and Nick Singleton in that backfield. Defensively, I think the biggest thing that jumped off the page for me and what I'll be most interested to see against an Ohio State rushing attack that is talented but not nearly as put together as the Michigan one, and certainly going to affect you in different ways. More inclined to run east and west on you than run downhill the way Michigan did. Manny Diaz in that Penn State defense, what feels like every time they tried to bring pressure, Michigan caught them and hit a massive play. That was a big point of pride. PJ Mustipher, the D tackle for Penn State, said that was a big shot to the pride that entire game. This last week, they had a good rushing team against Minnesota, but it was an entirely one-dimensional outfit. Tanner Morgan was out that game. They were on to their backup, who was a guy who had, I think, played in 5 games but hadn't started any. Got his first start on the road in a wideout. This Ohio State team's a different animal. The offense is too good. The wide receiver room and the quarterback are too good. I think they're the best team in college football right now. And so I think Penn State will probably show better for themselves early, but I could see Ohio State making this a multiple touchdown victory for them, even on the road. I think they're that good.
I'll tell you what, though, if Penn State plays them as tough as they do on a yearly basis, if it ends up looking like a normal, Ohio State Penn State game, I will be getting my hotel room in Indianapolis. I will look and try. I'll get plane tickets to both Arizona as well as to Atlanta. I will be ready to go, but that's obviously going to be way too premature, regardless, because they play games for a reason. Like you said, you think Ohio State is the best team in college football right now, but looking far, far ahead, how much credence do you give Michigan? How much of a possibility do you think right now Michigan has to repeat its success from last year against the Buckeyes? And what do you think it would take for Michigan to do? I know we're 5 weeks out, but what do you think it would take Michigan to do to be able to come away with win number 2 in a row?
Well, I mean, it starts with the fact that you got 1 in a row, right? Believing you can do it is such a huge part of these elements. And I know that sounds corny and cheesy, but it's true. I've lived this side of that's been under the boot, that hasn't won those games for a while. And getting rid of that, oh, here we go again, if and when things go bad, is a huge part of turning the tide on that. So having guys that have been around and been a part of that win already gives you a huge leg up. I think the formula is going to have to look pretty much the same. You're not going to be able to go toe-to-toe firepower-wise, scoring at as ready a clip as Ohio State is. Just not the way the offense is built right now. Your offense is built to do exactly what you needed to. Notre Dame played Ohio State week 1. The only reason they had a chance in that game is because they went ball control. They tried to take the air out of that thing. Michigan can do that a lot more forcefully than Notre Dame could even have thought about at that point. Michigan can do that as something that's the defiant strength of their team. And so the formula is going to have to look the same as it did last year. It's just going to require even more because the Ohio State defense got a boost with Jim Knowles coming over, and the Ohio State offense just has another year of seasoning for a quarterback who's going to be a day 1 top 5, probably in contention for the number 1 overall pick, and a receiver room that, yes, even though Jackson Smith and Jigba has been, largely missing this season, sounds like he'll be on a pitch count from here on out for the rest of the year if he's going to be able to be used. There's still talent, like it's going out of style there, Marvin Harrison Jr. and the rest of those guys. And so it will really have to be last year, when even then some. I mean, you had weather on your side last year that definitely played into the hands. It was the style of football Michigan wanted to play. And so it's going to have to be all that and more.
Well, we are going to have to reconvene, whether it's right before that game or right after that game, to discuss what that's all going to look like, or what it did look like. Mike, thank you so much again for joining. I feel like you're an awesome dude to talk to, and I hope I get to run into you at the stadium here. I'll be on the sideline, so I don't know if you've got a chance to come down. But
yeah, I'm usually down there for about an hour before the game. So I'll be wandering around down there, probably looking off nostalgically, remembering all those close games that usually didn't go our way when we were on the road that ended up on Big Ten Classic like the next day. So it'll be fun go back to Ann Arbor, a place where obviously a lot of memories as a player, awesome rivalry between Notre Dame and Michigan. So very much looking forward to it. Hopefully I'll see you down there. Definitely.
Well, from over at DraftKings and Learfield IMG, it's Mike Golic Jr. Thank you for joining us once again. That is Mike Golic Jr. I feel like Michigan fans that were not very happy with him last time going to be a lot more happy with him this time. So that's the good news. We are going to continue on. We are going to look at some MSU stats, just kind of go through the players, all of that we need to look out for. Listen, we know everybody. We know we know what the guys that are going to, but we're going to go through it anyway, because we need to talk about Michigan State. So I was talking to my buddy Eric Upchurch earlier today, former MGO blog photographer. He's like, no one's talking about this game for some reason. And I'm like, I know, it's weird, but it's like everything that I said on the podcast yesterday. Anyway, listen, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do, it's so easy. Just go to LinkedIn, create your job. I mean, it is so simple. It takes just a matter of moments. And after you've added your job, you add the hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. You want to finish the year strong, just like you want Michigan to finish the year strong. So you go out and do like Michigan did before the season. They went out and got a Yabioki. Well, guess what? You can go out and find the right team member to help you do that. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. I'll tell you what, I wasn't lying that I was on the DraftKings app. I'd go on every day to the DraftKings app, and I end up playing their little casino games. So huge thanks to Mike Golic Jr. I end up playing blackjack, and I've had some good, I've had some bad. I played a little slots starting last night because a colleague of mine at the press conference said he won $10,000 playing slots. And I was like, oh, I hate slots, but I'll try it. And then I won like $30 like right out of the gates. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I guess he's on to something. And then I lost all of it. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, let's deep dive into Michigan State because it's we have to talk about them a little bit more. I do think it is kind of weird that we aren't. And this is kind of like I'm just going to go through the numbers. This is how whenever I do like here's what players do. This is what I do, right? I just go through the numbers, which doesn't always tell the whole story, but it also does tell a pretty accurate story to the same degree too, right? So obviously Michigan State starting quarterback is Peyton Thorne. They really like Noah Kim. Noah Kim's 14 of 19 in the 4 games. He's gone in 73.7% passing, 9.2 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Pretty high passer rating on that limited action. So I guess I can see why, but that's it. They're in the same kind of backup quarterback as the most popular dude out there. If things aren't working for Peyton Thorne, wouldn't be surprised. But Peyton Thorne is he's completing 65.4% of his passes. That's pretty decent, to be honest. 1,499 yards. It's also a decent at this point in the year. I mean, it's no CJ Stroud, but that's more than what JJ McCarthy has. Granted, JJ didn't start until week 2 and didn't get starters minutes until week 4. So there's that too. But he's completing 7.2 yards per attempt with 11 touchdowns. And this is where it gets tricky. 7 interceptions. So he is ripe to get picked. But he also can use his legs from time to time. These are sack adjusted numbers, but he's attempted 35 carries for 13 yards. But I've watched some of those games, and obviously there's plenty of times where it's like, okay, he's making plays with his legs. Michigan has to expect that. They certainly will. As far as sacks allowed are concerned, they're 44th. They've allowed 12. So it's an average of 1.71 yards per game. So Michigan, conversely, 23rd. So doing pretty good, obviously, this year, as far as that's concerned. So that's the quarterback situation. Rushing, they've got the 2 guys, Jalen Berger and Jarek Broussard. I was always calling him Jake and Broussard for some reason. And I really thought that Jarek Broussard was going to be the guy. And people are really high on Elijah Collins in his 5th year for some reason. And he is averaging higher, but he doesn't have as far as yards per carry, but they're all sub 5. He's the closest at 4.87, but Jalen Berger, 4.59, 5 touchdowns, 367 yards. Jarek Broussard, 191 yards on 44 carries. That's 4.34. And Elijah Collins is 30 carries for 146, 4.87, 4 touchdowns. So all in all, they have 11 rushing touchdowns. They're doing okay, but I mean, they're not doing good. I guess when I say they're doing okay, that's probably not a good thing to say. They have 743 yards total. Blake Corum has more than that by himself. So clearly they don't have Kenneth Walker Jr. coming through there. So if Michigan can stop the run, which they've done a pretty good job of, then they just have to stop the receivers. While everyone's looking at Jaden Reed, there's a couple other guys that are certainly big threats. Keon Coleman is actually their leading receiver. 31 catches, 393 yards, 5 touchdowns. Reed has 32 receptions, just one more reception, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns. Trey Mosley, the West Bloomfield product, who Bakari Page is used to going up against, and Ron Bellamy is used to coaching. He's got 23 receptions for 226 yards. All in all, 1,700 yards worth of receiving yards. So just to clarify, so that you understand exactly where Michigan is, Michigan's just shy of that, 1,623 on the season. But Michigan's top receiver, Ronnie Bell, is got more yards than all of them. And then you've got Roman Wilson, Luke Schoonmaker, Cornelius Johnson, all in the 200s, where you've got 2 guys approaching 4. Again, Ronnie Bell has been even better than those guys, but it's really kind of on par. The difference is, of course, as I said, Michigan's running the ball a lot better. 1,692 yards rushing. I mean, that's pretty impressive, by the way. They've got 1,620 something yards passing and 1,692 rushing, whereas Michigan State has 1,700 yards passing, but 743 yards rushing. So when I said they're doing okay, let's just take that way back. That they are not doing okay. They are very anemic. So they feel like they have to pass the ball a lot. As far as tight ends concerns, Daniel Barker is the guy that they've really been going to. Malik Carr, who Michigan fans certainly remember from his recruitment out of Oak Park, ended up going to Purdue and then transferred to Michigan State. He's the other one. They have combined for 18 receptions and 253 yards and 1 touchdown between them. Most of that is Daniel Barker. So that is that. When it comes to sacks allowed, like I said, they are 44th. They're doing okay as far as that's concerned. Tackles for loss, they are actually also doing okay. They're doing better than Michigan, believe it or not. They're 15th in the country in tackles for loss allowed. So they've only got 29, which is average of 4.14 yard tackles per loss a game. Michigan's 24th, 4.43. So getting to them in the backfield isn't something that they're doing a lot, but that's kind of what they were last year and the year before too. So this isn't really necessarily a completely different Spartans team in that right. All right, we are going to continue on and discuss the defensive side of the ball for them. But before we do, need to tell you a little bit of something about perspiration, which is actually what I'm doing right now. I could use this product literally right now, but I didn't use it today. And you can't see it because it's underneath my hoodie, but I am perspiring. And it can be embarrassing. Like I've told you, I've gone to press conferences after being out in the elements, come in, I get comments. That's not something that's on the page here. I get comments. I really do. It annoys the heck out of me. And that's why I use SweatBlock. I was able to fix my problem using SweatBlock. SweatBlock gives you the confidence to wear what you want without embarrassing underarm sweat. SweatBlock wipes were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. If you or someone you love is experiencing sweat or odor, try SweatBlock. They have wipes and deodorant. It's incredible. I like both of them. Save 20% with the promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. You can also get it at Amazon. All right, let's continue on with this MSU deep dive. As far as the numbers, just by the numbers. That's what we're going to call. That's what we're going to call this. By the numbers. This is no different than literally what I do. It's just typing it out and then maybe going to PFF, looking up snap counts, how much time, what's their snap counts, what's their grade, how are they doing with this and that and blah, blah, blah. That's all part of it, right? Which speaking of, let's do a little bit of that right now before we completely get into it. So when it comes to the offense of everybody here I'm going to look at all the Big Ten. I think that's the better way to go. So offensively, Michigan State is ranked 7th, 78.1 in the Big Ten. By contrast, Michigan's third. This is by PFF. Is third with it's 87.5 behind Minnesota and Ohio State. When it comes to running, Michigan's number 1, MSU's 12. When it comes to passing or pass blocking, Michigan State's actually top in the conference according to PFF. So it'll be really interesting to see what they're going to be able to do as far as the Michigan defense trying to get into the backfield. Run blocking, they're actually, for some reason, ranked third, one above Michigan, which makes no sense to me. Makes zero sense to me. But what are you going to do? But Michigan State's defense is why we came here. They are ranked, according to PFF, 13th in the Big Ten. They have a grade of 69.8. The only team that is worse than them is Northwestern. Michigan has already played Indiana, who's 12th. Michigan has played Maryland, who's 9th. And Michigan has played Penn State, who is 8th. Michigan, by contrast, is 3rd. Michigan's also played number 1 in Iowa. So should be able to get things done as far as that's concerned, according to that. As far as the pass rush is concerned, Michigan has the third best pass rush, tied with Rutgers behind Ohio State and Penn State, which is kind of an odd thing considering that if you were to take a look at what Michigan's sack numbers are, when you look at the best teams in getting to the quarterback, actually doing it, which is the stat that matters most rather than just the grading. Michigan is 12th in the country. 12th in the country in sacks. Michigan State, 51st. They have 17 sacks. Michigan has 24. Same amount of games. So Michigan is getting there. It's doing its thing. And for some reason, it's not up there. But anyway, pass rush, Michigan State is ranked 11th, 70.6. Coverage, Michigan State's bad. They're 12th. I'm surprised they're not 14th. Michigan's 4th. Tackling, Michigan's best in the conference. Michigan State is 4th. All right, let's get to the actual what they do type of thing here, because I think that's just as important here. So as far as tackles, while Jacoby Windman has been the guy who's really gotten the attention, he's I think a 2 or 3 time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. Certainly he leads in sacks. He's got 5.5 sacks. That's half a sack more than Mike Morris, who leads for Michigan. He's the second best when it comes to sacking the quarterback in the Big Ten. Michigan's got to look out for him. But Cal Halliday, the linebacker, the sophomore, he's the number 1 guy in tackles. Kendall Brooks is behind him. So 58 and 57 respectively. Ben Van Sumeren, who kind of just lost his job, the former Michigan guy, the Benedict Arnold, the turncoat, as I'm sure many of you feel, is 53rd. But Kendall Brooks, being a guy that's got some of the most tackles, along with Angelo Gross and Amir Speed, those are 3 of the top 5. Those are all defensive backs. That's usually not a very good sign when defensive backs are the guys. You want linebacker and defensive line to be those guys, generally. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way, of course. But usually when you see that being the case, it ain't good. It just ain't good, right? Michigan does have Rod Moore, safety, as its 4th highest tackler, and Mike Sainristil as its 6th. But the first 3, that's what you want. Linebacker, defensive line. You want a bunch of defensive linemen and linebackers to be your top tacklers. That is generally what you want. When you look at Michigan State, linebacker, defensive tackles are down the list. Now, granted, they've gotten they've gotten some guys back, right? They've gotten Xavier Henderson and Jacob Slade back, and they've had a week to heal. Jacob Slade's only played in 3 games so far. Xavier Henderson's played in 2. So those are their stars, right? Those are their playmakers. So it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as that's concerned. We've already kind of gone over the sacks and tackles for loss, but just to reiterate, they've got 17. Outside of Jacoby Windman, I mean, it's just a bunch of guys. Chester Kimbrough, the cornerback, so they do bring the cornerback. Simeon Barrow Jr., Derek Harmon, Cal Halliday, blah, blah, blah. Tackles for loss, again, it's Jacoby Windman, 10.5. So he and Cal Halliday are the danger men over there. Chris Bogle, who you might remember from being a former Florida Gator. I remember he was a guy, I think I might still follow him, to be honest. Followed him throughout his recruitment. He is the senior defensive end over there as well. He's got 3 tackles for loss. Adding to that, let's see here, not fumbles, but interceptions. They've got 2 on the year. Jacoby Windman has 1. Charles Brantley has another. Ultimately, this is not a very good defense, right? And I think we all know that when it comes down to it. I mean, Michigan State is ranked, I had it up here, 105th in the country in total defense. Now, I don't think they were that bad overall last year. I mean, they weren't good, but I don't think they were ranked that low. No, I'm wrong. 110th. I thought it was just the pass defense. Nope, it's the whole defense. Now, passing defense is 110th on the year so far. Rushing defense, it's marginally better at 80th. But generally, that is where they've been better at rushing defense. I mean, it was the 15th best rushing defense last year. This year, it's 80th. So Michigan should be able to run on them. But again, they get Jacob Slade back. That could play a big difference. So we will see. I'm not going to cover special teams, but do know that they have the best returner out there. That is a thing. They are, even though Michigan has PFF, the best special teams, they have the worst special teams according to that. I mean, when it comes to kickoff and punt returns, I mean, it's Jaden Reed. You got to watch out for him. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We've got the mailbag tomorrow. We'll preview the game on Friday. So we'll try to get a guest for that. We haven't done that in a while. So we'll try to get a guest because it is a big game and have to wait all day for it, all of that stuff. But anyway, thank you for watching and or listening. Appreciate you. We will talk to you again on Thursday. Peace.